Yeah, right. Awesome. Wow.
So,
Welcome, everybody to
Who
IoT.
plays the guitar?
Yeah, well, gosh. It's interesting.
Pete, you have a bunch of guitars.
I am actually in Massachusetts right now without guitar. So,
Oh,
well,
yay.
we should
Okay,
play,
let's stop this.
we should play a song.
Have a good day. Bye.
Skip the week. We'll do it next week.
yeah, right.
Play something for more this next week because they're coming back.
Okay.
There you go.
If you remember way back at the dawn of time when the dinosaurs were here, there you go. We didn't have guitar. We didn't have like a music introduction in the earlier days of Coffee Talk. We just kind of got going.
That's right.
I'm trying to remember when we started. I think it was a real casual thing. I think it was just Leonard's like, oh, let me try doing this, and then we acted very silly and did some karaoke and kind of went
This is
from
a
there.
throwback. This is a classic IoT Coffee Talk classic.
Yes,
edition.
exactly. Yes.
Alumni.
What was it? Was it MTV or what was the other one that's not MTV? It was also in New York.
VH1.
VH1. Yeah, remember they do like behind the music and stuff like that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Love those. Find all the scoop about the bands and stuff like that.
That's right. The real deal.
But Rob,
IoT Coffee Talk behind the music.
it's called TikTok nowadays.
Oh, yes, that's what it's called.
Short form content.
Yeah. My cousin Jenny worked at VH1 for a while because she went to school at Barnard. And so she got to know a bunch of people who were there. And she worked for a while as a line producer they had a show called The Best Week Ever on VH1. And so they would do some crazy 80s or whatever, 90s silliness. But then she went on to do production for all those Best Housewives of whatever shows.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Absolutely. How's it going, Bill?
What's up, fellas?
All right. So today, in case you don't know, but you probably do, today is officially NVIDIA Day.
Again,
Yes. So NVIDIA, they're going to release their earnings after the market closes. And, the takeaway, they need to beat their earnings and show, growth. They need to forecast a raise for the rest of the year. And if that happens, we're all going to be billionaires. But if it doesn't happen, if they miss or if they beat, but they don't do a raise, all of society is going to collapse. And I know that seems a little crazy. And would you be surprised to know what percentage of people in the world have NVIDIA stock right now, that they are long NVIDIA and they're betting their whole future on NVIDIA stock? It's a lot of people.
Well, it's a huge percentage if you look at the percentage gain of the market overall, a huge percentage of it, I don't know, it's like a third or whatever, some big number is NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Just NVIDIA.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's obviously a big part of everyone's 401k and retirement savings and all that stuff. But, I don't think we're anywhere close to we're not close to any AI bubble bursting thing or anything. So I think NVIDIA.
but it's probably the right time to to do the reminder, Rob, that we are doing this for fun. We are just having
yes, definitely
about everything.
Good timing.
Do not take any of what we are saying as any financial advice, or do not make any decision. Or actually, So we're just talking about it, right?
Entertainment.
Total disclaimer on top of disclaimer. To entertainment purposes only.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
But if I go on Twitter, X, that's all everybody's talking about right now is NVIDIA. And literally people are like, society will melt down if they miss their earnings.
Oh,
Crazy.
Oh,
wow. So, Bill, what are you working on these days?
The question is, how will other companies do in terms of, there'll always be companies that sort of, obviously, overhype their futures and have to pay the piper. And so that's what everyone's being careful about, is to make sure that they're tempering their forecast with reality. So that's kind of the difference between a very successful public company and one that kind of screws the pooch.
And people kind of feel like they have an idea of where NVIDIA might be based on, they all know companies who are using their GPUs. And so the success of these other companies, or if they're placing orders, they kind of have a good feeling like, okay, NVIDIA is going to be, and so if OpenAI and Google and everybody else is buying chips. And remember, there was a time, I don't know, a couple of quarters ago where people saw news from TSMC, like there was like a slowdown there, and people were saying, okay, there's going to be a ripple effect there. It must mean fewer orders and stuff like that. Lots of people reading tea leaves 24/7.
A lot of bears out there. A lot of bears.
You're right. Absolutely. Wow.
Well, it used to be the thing where you couldn't get fired for buying IBM, then you couldn't get fired for buying Intel, and now you can't get fired for buying NVIDIA. So we'll see who's next.
Yeah.
You know what percentage of these NVIDIA earnings come from edge AI or IoT part compared with the cloud? It's like 80-20, 90-10? Or
the edge is probably
99-1.
Yeah, just probably
9-1?
95.5, yeah.
95.5, okay.
I mean, you're right. I remember IoT people got excited years ago when they came out with the little Jetson thing, and they were going to do edge AI with that, and that's exciting. It's still cool, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
there it is. Yeah,
I have it here.
And
it's cool stuff, and so's the robotics stuff too, like the humanoid robotics, but the volumes on those are extremely low.
Yeah.
So in terms of actual like impact to the bottom line for a chip seller, I think they said maybe by 2030 there might be 1 million units worldwide of humanoid robots. So that stuff's not going to really move the needle on a unit basis, but same the edge stuff, they have a great thing there, but there's lots of other companies doing, as many other things on the edge, and NVIDIA just holds a small sort of slice of that. So,
have you ever written any papers or anything from the Tiny ML organization related to, yes, NVIDIA GPUs on a edge device does in fact accelerate the machine learning training or inference? Is that a thing? Maybe not a thing.
Sorry, what was the question, Rob? Sorry.
Oh, I was just thinking of Tiny ML, and if there's ever been any papers written or anything where you say, yes, having the NVIDIA GPU on these edge devices does in fact accelerate Tiny ML training or inferencing, that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, there's very little training going on out there. That's still pretty niche, to train on the edge. There's some reinforcement learning, which is kind of like training-ish stuff. But we're seeing some interesting, this is a whole other topic about the composable cloud and the composable edge, and how we're seeing lots of interesting combinations of silicon and devices and workloads to do some really cool scenarios. And so that's where NVIDIA plus, someone else is kind of an interesting thing. We're seeing lots of NVIDIA plus this or NVIDIA plus that, where NVIDIA is somewhere in the mix, usually farther up the chain, either in the cloud or in heavy edge. And then as you get to the lighter edge and the sensor edge, neuromorphic edge, you're getting obviously different players in there. So people have to think about these solutions as multi-edge, multi-cloud solutions, composable solutions. And in that case, NVIDIA's, they've always got to play there somewhere in there.
But you're asking people to actually think about a solution. I mean,
well, no, that's what they pay you to do. They pay you for to think about it. They don't have to think about it. That's why it's good business.
Exactly.
It's interesting, right? I mean, because there's been a conversation had around the edge cloud for a long time, and nobody really knew what it was. But I believe that to your point, Pete, I believe definitively that the amount of GPU that's going to be placed at the edge will help proliferate any concept of the edge cloud. But I think that it's going to happen in steps. I believe that you'll get some of your more aggregated devices that are sitting at the edge that are talking to the sensors, and that will be the communication point, the sensor to that aggregate unit before anything else. And as the storage capability of these edge aggregate units starts to grow, I do believe that you'll start to see more of it will say tiny training that's happening at the edge, as opposed to the heavyweight training that's happening in the center cloud.
Yeah, that makes sense. So speaking of the edge or private clouds, I'll put this up close to the camera. And there's Michael Dell commenting. So VMware is having their big event right now. And basically they want you to buy their VMware Cloud Foundation private cloud. And so you got Barclays CIO survey saying 83% of enterprises plan to move workloads back to private cloud from public cloud. 83%, that sounds like a really high number to me.
Where did they get that from? Somebody from Gartner say that?
And what is the exact definition of private
yes.
cloud?
So this was during the keynote yesterday at VMware's event they're doing right now. And so their CEO, Broadcom, was talking about this and put this slide up. And the source is Barclays CIO survey. And so, it shows this notion of cloud repatriation, actually. And so they got this 83. And of course, this is very self-serving for VMware, who's making a private cloud offering. And I guess you could argue it's very self-serving for Michael Dell to say, yep, not surprising at all, because Dell is all about on-prem stuff as well. And so you kind of wonder, 83%, that sounds like a wagon train, like that movie where all the pioneers said, this was a bad idea, wagons east. Let's go back home. We're getting killed.
This is similar to, the Titanic being, someone announcing the Titanic sinking and everybody's jumping off. There's no way. I don't believe that, not even in the slightest. Yeah. VMware is still suffering from their monumental shift in terms of how they're, dealing with their customers and the offerings that they have for their customers to go 100% subscription as opposed to anything else. And you see more people jumping off of VMware and moving over to Red Hat and moving over to others, than anything else. So how in God's name do they expect 83% of the population, the public cloud population, to move away and say, yeah, we made a wrong choice? I doubt it.
It seems like a high percentage to me. I get, obviously we've seen lots of stats over the last few years where it's like, oh, maybe the public cloud is actually more expensive, maybe, depending on the workload, than doing it yourself on-prem.
It is. It is. But see, there's so many tangled webs aligned with that. The public cloud is more expensive. Okay, are you just moving workloads that are monolithic over to the public cloud? Then hell yeah, it's going to be more expensive. If you natively build your solutions within any CSP and you've done it properly, you're going to have the benefits of elastic scaling, both horizontal and vertical. You're going to have the benefits of understanding how your workloads are being used. They turn from workloads to services. So now let's put one-to-one and run those comparisons. So for people to literally say that we're going to move, because in a number of instances, a lot of the folks that have their workloads in the cloud had monolithic applications. So they didn't take advantage of the benefits that are within the cloud.
Yeah. So you're referring to...
They did the lift and shift.
Across that.
They did the lift and shift. They went from the Dell under the desk to the Dell in the cloud.
Exactly.
As a VM, and then that was it. And, that's a good first step for a lot of folks, by the way.
It's a good first step. I agree.
But it's not the only step.
And not only that, it's as well to avoid lock-ins, right? So you can move from one to the other. Because if you start depending on specific features from one provider, then you're getting into lock-in.
So now we've got a conflict, because if you just do lift and shift and you just put your monolithic VM and you just upload it, which is a great first step, and then some people will say, now you need to do a second step. You need to modernize, take advantage of all the new features. But if you do that, now you've got cloud lock-in, because as soon as you take advantage of pass layer features in a particular cloud, you find yourself tightly tied to that cloud. You may have a better modernized app by doing it, but you may be stuck with that particular cloud provider and not be able to move to another one if you're not happy with it.
But that's assuming that you're not being smart about your re-architecture, because that's what you must do, re-architect.
Exactly.
And to that end, that means that you're taking that monolithic solution that I don't care whether it's VM based or any of that, but you're going to have to establish a K8 solution that then allows you hybrid cloud or multi-cloud support.
I was wondering when Kubernetes was going to land on our planet. So, okay, and that, you know, and for all you kids at home, Kubernetes and that whole cloud native thing was basically a response to all the hyperscalers already building their own cloud native capabilities, but you would be locked into them. In fact, there's no bigger lock-in in the world than doing Lambda functions, right?
Oh, God.
You will never break free from AWS if you take a dependency on Lambda. But Kubernetes was, hey, we figured out how to do the cool scaling thing like the cloud guys figured out a long time ago. Oh, but we're portable. So if you do Kubernetes across AWS and Azure and on-prem and Google, then you can do that.
You can do all of that.
Elastic
you can do
scale.
That. And going from you know, so here now we get into the argument of, oh, well, wait a minute, Azure has it, they have AKS, AWS has EKS, and I'm like, Oracle has OCNE.
Yeah, I forgot about Oracle.
Everyone has their own flavor, but that's why you re-architect your stuff as opposed to leveraging those cloud provider services where they come in and say, well, we'll show you how to do it. All I want to do is establish a little bit of plumbing, a little bit of plumbing, a little bit of plumbing, and I can go across any cloud provider that I want.
Yeah,
Right.
you know,
I think that's the composable cloud. That's the composable cloud trend, is people are architecting for portability and you know, basically mitigating risk by getting locked in. So
yeah,
well, that's a crazy thing that's happening at VM Explorer right now, right? With Hawk Tan getting on stage and like, did you guys start with that? Is that what you started with?
and I talked about the Michael Dell tweet and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Like, 83% are moving back to the private cloud. Sounds good to me.
But the other flow in that is, you know, a lot of the new application and services are available as a service anyway. So good luck convincing this one to give you the source code so you can run it locally in your private cloud. Is Slack going to start to make this available? I don't think so.
Yeah, you know, and those early cloud decisions based on the cloud hype were actually really bad. The economics, like I posted on LinkedIn, man, I've been looking at this stuff forever. And a lot of the strategies that and planning that we assisted CIOs with back in, you know, my Gartner as well as IBM days is like, man, this stuff doesn't work. But then the hype just swept over everything. And then people started throwing workloads and applications up into the cloud that were just like not fit for purpose and economics. And then now, you know, AWS and everybody's like putting out numbers how only 10, 15% of all enterprise workloads are in the cloud. Well, guess what? Yeah. And probably too many.
Well, but there's a counterpoint to that. And the counterpoint to all that stuff is look at the state of IT today in most organizations. Fewer people, folks don't actually know how to do that stuff anymore. Remember how we used to have to build everything and build networks and servers? There's a lot of people who don't know how to do it anymore.
It's even worse.
Come on.
They
have ChatGPT and they can ask.
but it's even worse than that, because UIT is probably 5,000 miles away in a cubicle somewhere in a foreign country. So good luck getting those guys setting up data centers and making them all available and running your private.
Yeah. No, but that's part of this whole equation is the decline of IT departments over time, the lack of skills, lack of people. IT was always considered a cost center by companies, right or wrong. And so they always got thrown under the bus when it was time to do layoffs and cuts and stuff like that. And so companies have been downsizing.
Yeah. But that being said, though, there's also like there's other, I would say near-prem, elastic compute alternatives coming up, like Vulture and Cato Systems and other folks, where you could get elastic GPU and elastic compute, but you're not in a hyperscaler. And so I think we're going to see companies taking advantage of some of those things where you still don't have to have an ID department per se, or you can have a small one. So you're not actually putting a Dell back under the desk, right, or in the back room, but you're leveraging compute in another way.
For the hyperscalers, it's called partners, right? And you have all these dudes that are and gals that are doing service management and managed services, like the old AMS and infrastructure management services of the olden IBM days. It's just shifting, right? And people just discovering economics where they didn't have visibility before, which is why FinOps was like a big deal, right? Not to be confused with fintech. For some reason, people keep thinking FinOps is fintech. It's not. Stop pinging me about that and trying to get me to buy your fintech crypto BS.
I will give you a great FinOps example from a little note that I wrote recently. HPE acquired a little startup called Morpheus Data. And they're going to integrate it into GreenLake. And GreenLake is their big private cloud offering. Yeah. Morpheus Data, though, while its main focus is being able to support multi-clouds and hybrid cloud and all that stuff, which is great, control plane, the secret hidden gem in that is a little FinOps technology where it does this dynamic continuous assessment of all your cloud estate everywhere and shows you how to save money, and it will dynamically. And so people are finding, 30% savings up to 80% savings because of this FinOps stuff that's buried in Morpheus Data's software, which is pretty cool. Because a lot of companies are have dead or semi-idle VMs and stuff all over the place that they're spending money on, So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff, it seems like it's new, and a lot of the cloud companies or hyperscalers, even OEMs, are moving toward this for all this hybrid cloud stuff. But it's been happening for a long time. I don't know if people remember CMP or cloud managed platforms and brokerage. That was an early concept.
Yeah. And that's what Morpheus Data is a CMP. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's probably a good acquisition for HP.
But you have to now, you said CMP, you have to say what that is, because it means different things to different people.
Okay, it's just like when we hear Bill Pugh say CSP, and he's talking about the cloud, whereas the rest of the world for decades referred to that as a communication service provider. In other words, a telco.
Yeah. And CMP is a connectivity management platform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, okay. People are reusing acronyms.
I thought we said cloud management platform. That's CMP, right?
Yeah, no. So that's what I'm saying. There's two different things there.
Yeah.
If you talk to the telcos, you say CMP, they're going to say, oh, connectivity management platform. Okay, I need to understand that, there's going to be many carriers, and I need that layer of connectivity management.
Yeah. Like when it was Ericsson with the IoT accelerator, that was a connectivity management platform. That's what it was. Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. Wow.
Yeah. So it goes to show you how far back some smart people were already seeing some of the economic issues with public centralized cloud and starting to look at and help CIOs solve the problem of multi-cloud. So these are all topics that are not new. They just are ending up becoming important today simply because there's more visibility to the economics, which there was no visibility to because you had a lot of analyst firms and consulting really wanting to push all this cloud stuff. The most ridiculous, people really need to watch this show because we drop all kinds of ridiculous stuff on this show. I'm serious. It's really, really uncanny, the stuff we talk about. But the whole cloud first thing, man.
Well, remember at the dawn of the cloud, who are the predominant consumers of cloud services, it was startups initially,
Yes.
right?
And not to mention the confusion that your cloud first, does it mean that you use a cloud computer, or does that mean that you use a set of techniques that were created when cloud emerged? So there's an enormous amount of confusion. You can run a web server at home and it's cloud first because it's web services and it's a web server and it was on HTML. So there's a lot of all this confusion. That's why I was initially asking, what do they mean by private cloud? Do they really mean getting a new box in your basement and running it with water to cool it down? Or do they mean creating those private isolated instances within a cloud provider? I think I bet you half of the people surveyed on that have this confusion.
Yeah, that's a great point. And when you look at a lot of these surveys, especially the early cloud stuff, and now even more with all these AI, surveys, the people who are being surveyed don't know what they're talking about. If you ask them, okay, well, break down AI for me or IoT, they would give you probably like the goofiest answer. And so if you had let's say you plotted out the level of understanding of the group that you surveyed, you'd see so much variability, and that would impact the efficacy of that study, right, and the outcomes. And that's why we continually see surveys that are misguiding the industry, even the ones done by the big guys, and maybe some of those are even more ridiculous. Because why are you asking C-level people, about Gen AI? They don't friggin' know. You know what I'm saying? They don't know what it takes to implement this stuff. They don't know the risks. They don't know the limitations of the technology. They don't know any of this stuff. If they do, they're in a very small company of people. And then how can you run a survey and then, as a consumer of the information in that survey, rely on the output and the insights? It's wrong.
Leonard says it's wrong.
That's why. No, I'm triggered because actually it's weird. I told you guys before. I've had very astute clients. When I was at Gartner, we would put survey information in the reports that we delivered to them. They just told us, get that shit out of there.
You didn't believe the surveys?
I mean, we're Gartner. Just put in we're McKinsey, we're Bain, we're
Gartner,
blah, blah, blah.
Connecticut.
Get that crap out of there. And I was like, why? It's like, number one, our salespeople have better visibility than any crap that you guys throw at us in terms of survey and insight. Stuff is inaccurate. Get out of here. We want real stuff. These are like the hardcore, PhD. We know what we're talking about. We talk to our salespeople. Our salespeople aren't chumps kind of organizations. They don't look at surveys. So there you go. But there's nothing but survey results and blah, blah, blah on LinkedIn, right?
Well, it's easy to do. That's because the cost of surveys is so cheap. I know there's a survey out there. You don't know who's answering it, like you said. It's totally unqualified. And how people interpret the questions, it's totally unqualified. So, you're right, but it's cheap and it's easy. You might as well just go to ChatGPT and say, generate a survey results with these results. And
Which they're trying to do.
I just want to basically, I want to take a moment and say congratulations. You guys just destroyed the entire analyst industry right now.
Just as Rob joined.
Oh, man. Sorry about that.
Are we saying that the future is using AI to do all our survey, but don't mean as an engine, but as a source, which is even worse?
Wow, surveys.
Oh my God.
You surveyed AI and this is the answer we got.
I don't understand the value of a survey at all, at any level.
Well, I would disagree with that. If you provide the right context, if you ask somebody, read those 10 pages where you define all these acronyms you agree about, and then you ask relevant question, that might work. But to your point, Bill, the quick, let's just take a 30-second survey. When I see that, I'm always scared. No, I don't want a 30-second survey. I want a 10, 5, 20 minutes, an hour survey where I am informed and ask questions that are relevant to what I'm informed about.
But that precludes the knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. So, so you've got to have a curated set of people, which I think they used to call those, what were they called? there were groups of people that marketing used to target.
Oh, focus groups.
Focus groups, right?
I remember running those. That was the most funniest thing you could ever hear. And I love because you have the focus group, usually you have the group in a room and the guy asking the question, and all people behind black mirrors where you were watching. That was the most fun. That was.
I mean, but so those are the things. So I mean, this is why I'm probably so. I get so animated when things are talked about, because if I can tell you definitively, if I've been doing something for 10 plus years and I've been getting paid for it, I think I'm probably pretty good at it. I think I probably know what I'm doing. So why is someone even going to counter that? Why are they going to say, no, what you're saying is wrong? Because it's really this. You know what? My knowledge is protected by FA and FO.
If you look bit at these things called politics,
F around and find out.
Come on, let's go.
No, you know what? And there's something to be said about just being connected and persist. Like what I do. You see me all over the place. I talk to tons of people. I know some people who are in the know. I just need to talk to them. I don't need some survey by 1,000 whoever's to shape my opinion or my perspective on a technology, where it's going. I have those conversations every day with people that I know who know what the hell they're talking about. And you get all kinds of visibility into what's happening in terms of adoption and all this other stuff.
Right.
You know?
Don't forget it works. Don't forget 60% of the time. 60% of the time, it works every time. That's all I have to say.
I mean, the point there is, I mean, Leonard, if you all of us know several people that know what they're actually talking about. Yeah. The question is, when you have those conversations with them, how transparent are they going to be? Because they still represent that organization that signed that check that allows them to drive their Teslas and everything.
No doubt. But it depends on the questions you're asking. And, by the way, Bill, when the hell are you ever not animated? That's friggin'. That's a given, dude. You don't have to.
None of us is non-animated, man.
I mean, I just can't help it. I really can't. So Rob, I think you were dead on with the whole concept around people understanding what it is that they are talking about. Dimitri, you were right. I mean, it's when we're throwing terms out like, the cloud first and all of these other things, have a conversation with somebody that has actually built something in the cloud and ask them why. Why did you go that route? And if they cannot tell you, well, I did it because of this, I did it because of that, and I did it because of this, then clearly they just jumped on the hype train and said, I'm going to land at my destination. Because I can guarantee you can ask anyone on my team why we are building in the cloud first. They will tell you the number one thing that we are driven by is cost to operate. That's what it is. And go and ask some of these companies.
Your OpEx.
Say it again, Pete.
Your OpEx, right? Your operational costs.
Yes. Talk to some of these companies and ask them, what's your operational cost? They can't tell you. You know why? Because it's conflated and blended and mixed up with a bunch of other things. They can't tell you what the cost to operate their solution is.
Oh yeah, no, that's a great point, dude. That is a really, really great point. That's why all this like FinOps stuff is such a important emerging thing, and where you do have to. I mean, if you are positioning solutions in a certain way, you just have to be mindful of the perception of the economics and where things meet and balance is going to change, right? That's what's happening right now. As you see sort of this pendulum, as Hawk puts it, moving the other way, people are just becoming aware. And nobody wanted to give them the visibility before. And I don't know. All the stuff is going to change. The perception is going to change. It's going to be interesting, how all this stuff works out. But the way that people were talking about, quote unquote, compute and how you deploy, where you deploy, why you deploy, that's I think going to be shifting. And I think what Hawk said last night was funny as hell. There was so much truth into it. And it annoyed the crap out of a lot of people, I'm sure. But yeah. I'm sure it makes all the OEMs go, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
So
exactly.
How would you guys advise VMware today with, obviously they're betting on cloud foundation and private cloud. And remember, folks, a private cloud doesn't mean traditional IT with servers and stuff. It means it behaves like a real hyperscale cloud, but it's on-prem, kind of like hyper-converged infrastructure. Point and click because remember we said we don't have enough IT people anymore, and nobody has skills. And so
I like the word composable cloud. I like composable cloud better than private cloud. It's just
but because people love that web dashboard they get with Azure and AWS, and you just click here and spin up different services, and they want that on-prem, and they don't want people running around, or I got to go buy a server every time I need to add scale. And so VMware virtualization and hypervisors became a commodity technology a long time ago. And now VMware was the pioneer, no doubt about it, and a lot of people jumped on board, but today they're in a commodity world. And so how would you advise them to be relevant against, hyperscalers or anything else?
Don't do it.
You think they should just shut it down?
Don't do it. Don't do it. I mean, you see this all the time. People jump in, right? All right. Business is vicious out there today, right? I mean, it's not dog eat dog. It's literally little fish, big fish, and the Meg coming to eat your ass up is going to happen. So I mean, don't do it. That's not your space. And that's not your space. And what the hell makes you think that you can actually pull this off in any way? Scalable, functional. I mean, you're just transferring. You are taking money out of your left pocket and putting it in your right. Your cost is not going away. It is just changing.
I feel like
yeah.
I feel like I'm at an Amway pitch.
It smells like Cloud Foundry to me. There was a lot of buzz about that like 10 years ago, all this open source thing, and GE poured a lot of stupid money into it.
Yeah.
Where is it right now? I mean, so the point is also technology exists. If you want a cloud independent, take a Cloud Foundry stack and implement it, whatever, in your data center, and you have it. So why? If that thing disappeared, there's probably an economic reason for it.
Yeah. No, I mean, Bill, I mean, you have a good point. I think that's why, I think you reacted last week about VMware, right? Just freaking go to Red Hat. I think Hawk is going to be fine with that. Let's just go. We're going to keep the core of high scale clients where we can go and make this kind of thing happen for large enterprises, right? Enable
Hawk's
them.
going to be okay with that. So, like, if you told the customer go with OpenStack.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, if he's okay with that,
yeah.
I mean, I guess. I mean, if his employment agreement has him a big payout if he gets asked.
Well, partners. I mean, we talk about sometimes here. It's like sometimes, not
That's
all money is good money, right?
Yeah, no, not all money is good money. But what he's talking about there is a hard pivot.
Oh yeah, but maybe that's what it takes for him to make this work. But if we just assumed he kept things status quo, I totally agree with you. This stuff doesn't scale on the long tail. No. So you got to focus on the fat piece, right? I mean, that's how I'm looking at it.
I'm not disputing that you have to do something. I just think that, I guess my question would be, I'd be the guy in the room raising my hand going, I don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. And to the when he chops off the long tail, that's exactly how everybody on that other side, the long side, is going to react to it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When I was listening to his keynote meant a lot to me, man. There's a lot of stuff that just kind of came together in what he's talking about. But there's one thing that you also perceived through that presentation is like, man, this guy is brutal. He knows what it takes to make something work, and he will do that against everyone's doubts and skepticisms, and maybe even, definitely comfort level.
For that, I applaud him, because it takes some intestinal fortitude and some iron cojones to actually stand up to the better majority and say, you guys are all wrong. I'm right.
Yeah.
And this is the direction we're going. And sure, we're going to lose some in the short term, but we're going to gain big in the long.
Yeah, because he did that with the partners last year. Now he's, I think, doing it with the customers just to keep that business solid and the scaling engine for what they're looking at doing with this, private
But you're
cloud,
placing a bet before the horses are in before the horses are there.
But with this big customers where he's going, the fat part of the tail, he's banking on that. And that's more than good enough. He's cutting off the bad business. Do you know what I'm saying? The non-scalable stuff, the stuff that doesn't fit his strategy. And it's going to piss a lot of people off. Because that's
people are pissed off right now.
Numerically, And look at his business, man. It's friggin' ridiculous, right? It's all over the place, but it's all in the critical spots that continue to scale. And even on the, if all this Gen AI stuff goes south, when it goes south, he's going to be in a better position than everyone else that's in this silly Gen AI game, right?
When it goes south. Oh.
It's going to go
literally just called the fall.
I just had some conversations yesterday. People just don't know. It takes time. It takes time for nonsense to implode.
I wouldn't necessarily say that it will go south, but it will find its place, and it's going to be much smaller.
Find its level.
Hype will implode. Yes. Technology, it is what it is. There's definitely going to be a residual that is valuable. And, I saw a lot of it at Hot Chips earlier this week. So I can see where certain things will stick and where we're going to see that residual advancement. And it's all good stuff, right?
Yeah.
How much does that match the hype? It doesn't.
Well, you can't match the hype. You can't.
There's a difference. Yeah.
I was
going to ask you, Leonard, I was going to ask you at Hot Chips, did you see some really interesting, more specialization of semiconductors to run different AI workloads and stuff? As we went, is that kind of that's the new hotness, right? Is very specific chips to run very specific model architectures.
You know what? It's funny, man. A lot of these are friggin' crypto mining pivots, dude. These are accelerators that people were designing for mining crypto. They're just pivoting it and trying to make them tweaked and optimized for transformers, right? So yes, they are going very specific. And but they're the problem is the software stack, and the interconnect stuff is much more important now, and something that is a lagging discussion item because people are
becoming the bottleneck,
fixated on GPU, GPU, and then they don't even know what a GPU is and how it's being referred to. And what it actually takes to create let's say a massive Uber scale, quote unquote, GPU, which is like an entire, GB200 NVL72 cluster. That's a GPU, but it looks nothing like a GPU, and it's definitely not the chip. So there's all this confusion that's going on. I had some interesting conversations about, the perception and how it's totally twisted, and it's fueling massive amounts of confusion in the general public. So technically what's going on is much different from the way that the public is perceiving things, So
Saw some news that says one of Intel's board members resigned over differences on the plan to save Intel.
Yeah. Although I think that board member was only on there for about 2 years, so
Okay.
shorter term person.
What's the plan to save Intel?
Make more chips.
Fab.
I don't know.
Fab it.
make more chips.
I don't know.
Gotta be the fab.
I mean, they came up with a plan a few years ago.
A geopolitical event affecting Taiwan might help. I don't know.
Oh, and
You
this
mean
was said at the
voting
beginning of the
plans, or-
show.
Well, that's what they say. Intel's too big to fail because they have to be.
Yeah.
They're the American fab bet, and they got $8 billion already in the pocket on chips to build this fab capability in the U.S. And so that's Pat's bet is to be the fab, be the fab, to rival TSMC and to mitigate risk.
And I think based on what you just said there, a lot of people probably backed up the truck and have been loading up on really cheap priced Intel stock, knowing that
maybe.
they're too big to fail.
I think Pat is saying it's like another few years worth of investment before they really pay it off. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this is just people just don't have an appetite, or investors don't have an appetite for the long game. And what Pat is playing, he's burdened by the long game, right?
Yeah.
And the financials look bad compared to everybody else because of this commitment. But if you're a U.S. citizen, hey man, isn't this kind of important? Especially if we passed the CHIPS Act and we did all this stuff. I mean,
it's kind of important.
It's our money. We gave our money to them.
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly. And then, but everyone is giving money to companies that are chasing science fiction, right?
That's true.
Chasing her.
But
Right.
I would actually argue that it is much more than money, and this is where the problem is. Because if you only look at the monetary aspect, you can make arguments that it might be most cost effective to run anywhere in there. It's much more strategic. I mean, that's what I said, geopolitical sovereignty level discussion that we should be having here, because we unfortunately don't live in a world when you can necessarily trust other powers to be the sole supplier of critical components of your society.
Oh yeah, that's what it's all about. I mean, he's got basically they have 70% of the CPU data center business, 80% of the PC business, and they're building out like this fab to rival the biggest fab in the world, and it just takes a lot of time and money. And so,
and there are some cybersecurity issues because you'll never know what are chips.
And they've had misses too. They had big misses too on some of their roadmap stuff.
But is there going to be a new company to compete with TSMC, or because it's wrong to compare Intel with TSMC, right?
This point, yeah.
No, man.
They're the different companies for sure. Definitely different.
No.
But fabbing is fabbing though, to a certain extent.
Because Intel's going to do the foundry thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe someday they spin off the CPU business or the chip business, and they just there's a fab business that's separate. I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, what that part of Pat's plan that he laid out a couple of years ago, part of it's we're going to build chips for everybody else, and
the idea.
We need to do ARM chips, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, they did a deal with Qualcomm. They did a deal with they did lots of deals to fab chips for lots of suppliers, which would make sense. You wouldn't want to sole source your fab on just this.
But that's the problem is all of that is like lagging edge stuff, like mature node stuff. That's not leading edge. And the problem is they don't have a leading edge customer until 18A, and that's Intel. That's like the product team's coming back. And this thing is all kind of messed up in a way. And it's also a sober reminder that advanced economies like in the US, subsidies have a different effect. Like industrial subsidies have different effects than, let's say, emerging or developing economies, right? They get a hell of a lot more leverage out of that. And there's a different purpose in that than for countries, economies like us and industries. like the semiconductor industry, where the United States is technologically way more advanced than everybody else. And
except for Spain. Except for Catalonia.
Spain.
Not at all.
Maybe, yeah, some
I'm just
smart.
sending love to Marc.
But maybe Europe is gonna invest or bet on RISC-V, right?
Oh, that's
I would.
it's the ESA that you
know,
still have to.
I mean, RISC-V for edge stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an MCU replacement or a Cortex-M alternative, maybe. But
I mean, Europe's already betting on regulations and stuff, so why not RISC-V?
I would say that Europe stick with ARM and all the other other Westerns. The biggest beneficiary of RISC-V, ironically, is China, not everybody else.
RISC-V is the Android of semiconductors.
Yeah.
This is scary.
Come get it. Come and get it.
Yeah,
It's free.
open. Yeah, and it's global.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
RISC-V International during the Trump, administration moved to Switzerland. We mentioned this on IoT Coffee Talk. This is why you have to listen to IoT Coffee Talk. We drop
that's right.
crazy stuff.
You get all the good chocolate. They got all the
I
good
have to
chocolate.
say-
Just don't know.
I have to
And
say,
good taxes.
it's very self-serving. It's very self-serving, but this conversation we've had for the last hour is probably one of the best, deepest. The analysis on semiconductors, private cloud, all that stuff. Anybody? No, I'm serious. This is pretty good stuff here. Senior people listening to this be like, "Oh my God, I had no idea," and it has nothing to do with IoT. But we're just, gosh,
All they need to do is buy a shirt or a hoodie.
Yeah.
Also,
it's our collective perspective.
There you go.
Our composed perspective. It's use a modern term.
Misguided. We're not.
It's,
composable, misguided perspective.
I know, but I can see the future of the elite analyst firm coming out of this group with this collective perspective, because man, this is some good stuff here.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why this is so cool, right? We get to share some great perspective, have great conversations, and learn from each other. So
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I know, and it's just so funny. It's like, one of our favorite trolls on LinkedIn, he's like, well, a lot of so-called IoT experts on YouTube doing all that stuff rather than coding and building shit. It's like, look, you know what? We're giving back. I mean, shit, you know how much I charge to provide some of this kind of insight, and I'm doing it because for fun. It's giving back.
$600 an hour.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Hey, who would pay us to code and design a freaking IoT device?
They'd pay Marc to code.
I don't know. We're been there, done that.
Anyway,
Other things, right, Rob?
And anyway, coding is over because it's all going to be done by Gen AI now. So you'll be able to articulate ideas like we do so that your code does what it's supposed to do, or you'll be obsolete. So.
No, man. No, seriously. Hats off to all the people who are coding now. You'll eventually, you'll eventually get promoted, and you won't be coding, and you'll be doing YouTube videos like us at some point.
I remember like 300 episodes ago that I was mentioning this case where these Japanese people who were checking the gas meters, they were installing the digital gas meters. So that was their last visit to that house. So probably no developers will code the last time that actually improve the Copilot.
You'll type the last bracket and then it's all words. No more symbols anymore.
No way.
I know a lot of people have been using generative AI to help them code. A good friend of mine who lives up in Whistler, like where you go skiing,
the cursor.
He's been using Cursor. He said it's great. His coding life had kind of trailed off a bit, and he's like, He goes, I'm back in it now. I'm using Cursor and I'm cranking shit out, you know?
Yeah, it's actually
Oh, wow.
actually on my to-do list to look at it. So we should probably talk about it in a few weeks once we have if
Guys,
you
take a look
look at
at
it
it.
as well, Rob. 'Cause it's
Absolutely. You know, tell Cursor to build you a digital twin.
Yeah. But, you know,
I'm sure it will do better than what many other people would answer if you ask them what is a digital twin.
Sure.
you know, but the thing is you still need to know what to prompt these things with, right? And that
Yeah.
takes some experience. I'm always concerned that you're going to have whole generations of people who don't know how to ask questions. So you can have all this coding knowledge, all this stuff in these LLMs, and nobody to actually ask any intelligent or good questions or know how to ask questions and make things happen.
Yeah, critical
Right?
thinking.
You
Right.
guys can do it because we can do it because we have the background. We had to code, we had to develop, we had to build things. But if you've never had that experience, how do you ask these things to do anything useful?
Yeah, and that's only the first level, because the second level, we all know that whenever you use Gen AI, you ask a question, you get an answer. Then you need to apply some critical judgment on the answer.
Yeah, otherwise,
like some critical judgment on the code. When those things are going to start spinning you thousands of lines of code, are you going to read the lines of code, understand what they do, and figure out where is the hallucination? Good luck.
Do you know how to test? Do you know how to validate? Do you know how to, do any of the? Are you competent enough to execute on any of those steps in this new Gen AI SDLC? Probably not. And that's like a freaking. I mean, seriously, Rob, you don't think that's a problem? Because it would be like those guys in Idiocracy. That whole population having the most intelligent LLM in the world and not being able to ask an intelligent question. So then this thing that is the corpus of human intelligence through the years is completely worthless because nobody can ask a damn good question. They go around, trying to grow plants with Gatorade.
I think that's what Pete's doing right now outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm watering my garden with Gatorade.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Hey, I have a hard stop today, guys.
Yeah.
I need to jump.
Yeah.
All right, so
Good to see
who's
you
gonna take
guys.
us out? Rob, you want to do it?
All right. Thanks for joining us on the Collective Perspective. IoT Coffee Talk, where we talked about semiconductors and private clouds and the hype and are things self-serving when CEOs say everybody's moving their workloads back to on-prem. Should you believe him, or is it self-serving? When Michael Dell says, yeah, he's right. Is it self-serving to buy more Dell servers, or is it, legit? I don't know. But I think we're getting some good perspective here. So that's a good thing. Don't take us too seriously. Like when I say things like back up the truck and buy that cheap Intel stock and be in it for the long game, don't take me seriously. We're not giving advice here. This is all entertainment. When I said today is NVIDIA Day, and society will melt down if NVIDIA doesn't beat and raise at the end of the day today, don't take it seriously. Leave that to Daniel Newman, okay? Thanks for coming. Obviously, ultimately, this is all about charity and raising up kids, lifting up our kids, elevating our kids, getting connected to the internet so that their minds can be scrambled by all the horrible stuff that's out there on the World Wide Web. What I meant to say is actually so the kids can have access to online school, like on Zoom or Google Classrooms. That's what I meant to say. Sorry. And we're getting them connected, and so it's all good. We're bridging that digital divide in a real way. We're not talking the talk and not walking the walk. We're doing it. So anyway, join us again next week. I won't be here. I'll be at a conference, but somebody else will be, hopefully.
Yeah.
And much love. I probably don't get the hearts on mine because I'm on a PC. Anyway.
No, you don't. Yeah.
That's good.
We're out.
All right,
Bye-bye.
guys. See ya.
Adios.
Yeah.